Go ahead and start the meeting. Would you all please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to start the study session. We do have everybody present. Augie, have you got this thing started?
Yes.
All right. So, public comment.
I have a public comment for item number 19 on Wednesday's agenda. Approve action on Edgar County Airport resolution.
Okay?
Is that talking about the zoning?
Yes,
That's the
sir.
resolution, yep.
Because I remember, I believe we were told that you would have another hearing, and I don't believe the zoning commission has ever had a meeting to approve anything to give to the county board.
That's not how it was set up. So the zoning commission basically had the initial report and then the public hearing and their final report. During the zoning commission's meeting, Jake, I think, said, yeah, we'll have another meeting. There's no need to have another meeting based on what's in the statutes. No changes, material changes been made to what was done in the first place. So, yeah, there won't be another public hearing.
So what meeting did they approve to hand you guys any recommendation? There was never any
They
approval
sent in a
of any
report.
meeting.
There, as far as I know, there wasn't any kind of meeting. They had the public hearing, and it was Jake and Robert that worked together to generate the report.
And they transmitted it to the board.
So by giving you a recommendation, they took action on something, and that action was never taken during a public meeting.
Robert wrote up the report, and I don't know, as far as, public meeting to generate the initial report,
Okay,
you got me on that one.
looks like you guys gotta do something, Wednesday, so.
So, do we have a report, or,
So the document that exists is basically the final report.
Did Carl
On
get it?
email, is that what you said? It's
I've
hung on the
never seen
website.
it.
It's hung on the website.
I
Website
thought
says
that
it's
that
draft.
was mailed out. Not Friday, but whenever I
It
sent,
was,
put it
yeah,
up there.
week and a half, 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks ago.
Well, the website says it's a draft, and I think it says it's a draft, but regardless, in my non-legal opinion, that commission cannot recommend anything for the county board to approve unless they approve that recommendation in a public meeting where the public can sit there and watch them approve it. And that they can say, here, we're going to approve this, here's the agenda, approval of the final
Well, that was
report.
part of the public hearing, was here's what we're submitting to the board.
They didn't approve, they didn't submit anything to the board, they didn't approve. What they did, they said, we'll have another stinking hearing, and we'll put the proposed ordinance on the website 14 days, for 14 days prior to another public hearing, and we'll have an email address.
They may have said a lot of
for people
things.
No,
What is in the-
we did not agree to that, and we will not agree for comments back on the, we didn't,
Well, it's not
the
you
council
guys.
advised
The
the
commission
commission
said,
not to do that. Okay? We were not gonna have a back and forth or comments on the website,
okay, well,
Right.
okay?
go ahead and approve it if you want to, that's fine. Deal with that later.
so
Well, I just,
I don't have anything.
Well, Carl, we've had that,
I don't have anything.
okay, well, I apologize you didn't get it.
Right.
I tried to
So I'd
mail
like
you
to-
we
everything.
all got it on, I got it.
I got it. I read
The
it.
new guys, I don't know whether the new guys have got it, but
I'm sure
Yeah,
you guys don't either.
No, I haven't.
did
Well,
we get it in our packet?
no, I went home Friday with a hell of a toothache, and I'm sorry. You got your packet, and I'm sorry. I let you down this time.
Oh, you can get us a copy of it today.
But we
Sure can.
postponed it again.
Did you say it's online?
We postponed
Yeah,
it
it's
again.
online.
For what?
I don't know.
Online where?
It's on our website.
Oh, on the county website on what we're gonna be approving?
Yes,
Okay.
word
You
for
said
word.
council said that was the process to go through.
Right, it's laid out in the statutes as far as.
Are we following the statute?
All right, fine,
That's all, that's what's important.
right.
Okay.
Did you have anything else, John?
Other than I don't think you're following any statute by approving it without it being recommended in a public meeting by the commission to submit that to you guys. So that'll be a point of contention later, go ahead and approve it.
Yeah, see if we're not bulletproof on that. Yes, I'm sorry, Rob.
Thank you, Jim. Good morning. Good morning, members again. My name is Robert Bowe, a citizen of the United States of America, and I'm a veteran of the United States Army, and I reside in Edgar County. I normally talk about airport issues, and I think that's a good place to start first meeting. The airport has a budget of about $80,000. That meets all the operating needs of the airport. It may not cover an emergency situation, but it does address all the operating needs. It doesn't need any more money at the moment to address normal operating needs. In many communities, income generated by their airports is turned over to the general fund. Our airport generates about $60,000. Instead of that $60,000 being returned to the general fund to reimburse the taxpayers that have just dumped $80,000 into the airport operation, those funds are being kept back, they're being held back, so that when projects come up, they have the funds to do it. We are now in some very, very difficult economic times. It appears to me if we would ask the airport to return up to $80,000 that we invest annually, in other words, return their $60,000 of income to the general fund, we could use it for things that affect nearly every taxpayer here in Edgar County, and not just 6 or so aviators that use the airport and have their airplanes at that airport. There are only 6 or so Edgar County residents with airplanes at the airport they are flying. So, when you talk about funding, because these are extraordinary times, you have to reflect on the recent past. We just bought a high school. Most real estate taxes have gone up about 7 or 8% or 6%. Landowners here already know that equation. We've just passed a 1% increase in sales tax. We have sold in recent years the mass transit, which provided $150,000 of income. We have prepared the Kreckman building for sale because we've had it appraised. We have big funding issues ahead of us. If we were standing in the airport, but the courthouse, I would say we have a courthouse roof to pay for, to the magnitude of $400,000, and that's not too many years away. We have a county-wide debt of $400,000 to $500,000. Long-term, we've been paying on it. That needs to be addressed. We have a sheriff's department that's $70,000 over budget. These are more or less, so like a 69.5 or something, please forgive me. Thank you. The point is, before we go off and buy a new jail or we try to get a courthouse roof or tired of this, we need to address long-term debt and spending. The easiest way to avoid a catastrophe and another tax increase for the taxpayers in this community is to get the airport to return the $60,000 and put that into a fund called the general fund and start paying our bills. This past fiscal year, I believe, and you may correct me, that we short funded several accounts in order to cover expenses. Now, if you have a sinking fund for a building maintenance, you choose you make a pledge and you don't meet the entirety of that pledge, that's okay. But the point here is that long-term financing, we are in difficult economic times. Right now would be the best time to take the $60,000 for a couple of years to see how this works. Help the sheriff's department. I'd rather have a better sheriff's department, more coverage, than I would have an airport project that we don't need. The new members may not realize it. The $1.3 million project that's on the table can only happen if you pass the airport zoning action. This is what's under discussion moments ago. I hope you don't do that until you halt that project. halt the $1.3 million taxpayer expenditure, save this county. The county has $60,000. It can be done a different way for $1,500. Our actual needs are different than our wants. The actual need for the Edgar County Airport is fuel 24/7. I urge you to readdress the project. 1 minute? Thank you. Readdress how you look at this. Call in the $1.3 million airport project and table it. Take your $60,000 and pay your bills down, take care of your sheriff's needs, and then ask your consulting engineer to come up with a $30,000 project, not a $1.3 million project. Big problem here is if Edgar County's got $60,000, you can damn well bet the state of Illinois doesn't. So they're gonna add to your debt. So you're gonna pay 60 here, you're gonna pay 60 at there. Have you ever heard about the $20 trillion debt in Washington DC? They didn't do it there by themselves. They solicited counties for projects they really don't need, but projects they'd love to have. Thank you.
Just for you new folks, know, we are taking 40 of the 60, and don't quote me, it could be 59.5. We are taking 40,000 from the airport fund and putting it back into the general fund. We do that every year.
Can I comment on that?
No.
You do that every year?
Yeah.
Every year?
So, I gotta get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Keep got some things to do here.
See what you're getting into.
All right.
So, yeah, both of them.
Let's talk about committee assignments first, okay? And then we'll get into committee reports. Is that all right?
I know, I can't,
We have a road and bridge fund, and a motor fuel tax fund, and I'm sorry you don't have anything in front of you right now as far as a blank. I messed up and we did not, Carl and I didn't communicate correctly, so I don't have anything to hand out to you this morning.
I screwed up.
At any rate, everybody serves on the road and bridge and motor fuel tax fund committees. Then we have an insurance committee, we have what's your committee?
Animal shelter.
Animal shelter, we have a building and grounds, we have a sheriff's/labor relations committee, we have a budget committee, which everybody serves on. Then we have and then we have an airport committee, which 3 members, and we have 3 people that serve on all these committees, except for the budget committee, which we all, as a committee of the whole, serve on.
road and bridges.
And road and bridge, and we combine those 2. At any rate, then we have public health, IMRF, 911, county offices, claims, and ESDA. And those are usually single individuals that serve on those committees. So I apologize. You could kind of pass this around just to get what we've done. I've made some corrections on it based on what I now understand Carl has. But if there's anything that you have a interest in, and I've talked to some of our members and put some folks on committees, and hopefully get some input back from you, and by Wednesday we can get this squared away, especially you, John, and you, Lud, if you take a look at those. And we're trying not to overload you the first year in chairmanships and so forth, so that you have a chance to feel the ground and get some solid information, so that we're not asking you to chair something or get into something that might be not over your head, but that you don't fully understand yet.
Start easy.
Right.
Right.
And get you kind of acclimated, okay? So, any comments?
You don't want to put me someplace where I'm ignorant, I want to tell you. There's a lot of things that I deal with
No, you'll
on a
learn.
daily
You'll
basis,
learn.
but
Well, Bruner put a claim on you. He wanted you on the animal
well,
shelter.
that's a big issue. That's one of the
Right.
reasons I'm here.
Right,
Good,
yeah.
Okay.
And you'll soon see.
that's fine.
I'm pretty,
If you have an interest, we want to make
I
sure
have
that
more
we,
than just an interest.
okay.
He's starting his own humane shelter.
Well, that's fine.
I'm just,
Ed.
I'm gonna ask a question or two, I get an opportunity, and just to what our level of authority is, or what we can recommend, or where we can get cooperation, just being on the county board, give you a little more help, or, you know, I wanna know, cause I'm not real happy with a couple things, I wanna get something done about it.
Has my dog been running through your yard lately?
I'm
Okay.
not talking about, I'm just talking about there's some, one particular area that I see every day. I drive school buses, you all know that?
Yes.
And I pass this area twice a day, every day. I know when these animals are fed, when they're not fed, when they're taken care of. And I've called the state on multiple occasions. I've sent the sheriff, tried to, and I don't get any cooperation there, really, not much cooperation. They've tried a little.
We don't have much,
And,
sheriff don't have much authority, but,
no, but surely he would listen.
yeah, I think you would.
I mean, I've sat in front of this guy's house for 4 hours, 5 hours a day, and the sheriff told me he went there and he never did. I'm not gonna put up with this one way or the other.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not using you guys, I'm just saying this is one of the reasons I'm
Well,
here.
you obviously have an interest, so that's cool.
Extreme.
So, I do have a question for you, Phil. We have an assignment where we're talking to the regional superintendent's office. I talked to Bruner about it, he's not interested, but there's quarterly meetings, they meet over in, Charleston.
Yeah, that'd be something down my line.
Would it,
Yeah.
would that be something you're interested in? Cause Bruner was doing it, I'm not
It'd be better
Bruner,
than I
but
do something,
Zuber was.
Yeah.
So if you wanna, if you would like to do that, we can accommodate. I'd rather go to the guys that got some education background first and talk to them before I make, so that's fine. I'll-
I'll do that, I'd be
We'll
happy
do
to
that.
do that.
Would you note that, Augie?
Yes, sir.
And then, we'll, Carl, did that look a little more like what you were talking about, or is?
We'll talk.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble again. All right,
I'm
Any-
gonna take the opposite approach. What? The airport really is the one big ongoing issue at the moment. And as a new guy coming on the board, I would feel so far behind, I don't see where I would do any good on that committee.
On the airport?
Yeah.
so far I put, Bruner, Farnham, and
Smarter than the last new guy that said, oh yeah, I'll sign up for that, get me in there.
Yeah, I left you two off that.
Okay, I assume that was a,
No, I think
you know, there's too much ongoing to jump in
Well,
midstream
let me
on
ask you a
that.
question, would it be, I'm gonna ask you guys a lot of questions, and
That's fine.
there's a lot of things I obviously don't know. I know the airport, from what I hear, I mean, I'm a member of this community, just like the rest of it, and I hear all kinds, and I don't know, I can't remember for 5 minutes, so I don't have anything to go on. Well, we're just wondering if it wouldn't be good that, like, somebody like John, I think, is a pretty smart guy. You know, not have any, he has no prejudicial issues or whatever, he's brand new to it, wouldn't his outlook be not a bad thing, starting right off? That's yet to do what he wants to do, I guess, but, you know, most people get in that after a period of time, you get your opinions made, and
Right.
just like with anything else. New guy, although I don't understand that kind of
Is
stuff.
he on the airport committee?
No,
can
not
take-
at this point.
Nobody's, yeah, I'm not on any committee.
Well,
You will be.
You will,
No, I understand that.
He can take my place on if you want to.
yeah, I'll talk to John and see.
No, I really, I mean,
I just,
like I said, that's one I feel like you'd be starting so far behind the 8 ball, it'd
there's
be,
nothing wrong with that.
I
thanks,
agree.
Lud, you're not helping me out
Well, I
here.
just think you would have a good, you would
Well,
have
there's
a
something
fresh
to say for
outlook.
that. yeah.
Different outlook, you know, coming in and you
Right.
can look,
I'm
don't
a little
have.
more
Well, I
subjective
listen,
than some
you know, I
people.
listen to Rob over here talk, I don't know much about what, you know, you're talking about. I will eventually, I don't
Yeah.
know yet,
Anytime.
but, you know,
Yeah, and that's where, you know, attending the board meetings will all figure it out over time and get a handle on it.
That's why we have two study
But
sessions.
thanks, Carl, you're not,
attaboy, Carl.
Okay, we do have, just so you're all aware, at the meeting on Wednesday, the state's attorney has asked for some time to go into executive session for, some court cases that we're involved in, which will be good for you too. We'll also have a personnel issue and a land acquisition issue to talk about during that time period. Okay, so just to give you a little forewarning.
Let's go around to committee reports at this time. Do you want to start off, Andy?
I don't really have much at this point.
Where do we stand on the sheriff's committee grant for $25,000? Were you able to follow
I
up?
called him, he wasn't in on Thursday. He called me back on Friday and said that Sherry Lannon, who had some questions for us or for me, that she wouldn't be in till Monday. So I'm supposed to get back with her today.
Okay, I just wanted to
So that's
see
why-
where we were at on that. So, Mr. Bruner?
What's the grant
Did
for?
she, this is a $25,000 grant that every once in a while I've been trying on for what, 2 years now?
So I know we originally talked about doing repairs at the jail and that
That
didn't
was
work.
not.
So was it
it's
for
It's for
vehicles?
vehicles.
Okay.
And, are you aware that, I don't know whether Kevin called or whether Sherry called, Sherry called and talked to, Jeff. I didn't find this out till Friday, and I was too busy on Friday to follow up with anything, but, I don't know if she talked to someone else. She didn't talk to you, did she? Alright.
No,
I see,
I'm
I haven't
involved
talked to her
because-
yet, but I think she talked to the sheriff, and I wanted to know what his needs were, and she talked to someone else, but this is all separate from him, I haven't talked to her yet, so.
I'm
I'll talk
getting
to her
that the
today.
grant is not complete, and they're still waiting on something that we haven't provided.
If it is, it's not something that they've asked me for, so, if
Well,
they've asked me for
that's-
things, I'm giving it to them.
That's why you and Howery
Okay.
and Aaron need to be on the same page, because somehow we're not on the same page.
Well, she's supposed to call today, so, if not, I'll call her.
Mr. Bruner?
Well, as I said the last meeting, the property on Eads and Wood Street, I've given up on. I think the guy's still living in the RV, so I don't think there's much you can do about it. I mean, property now is occupied, so I just,
That's the key issue, and if it's occupied, it kinda takes away from you, doesn't it?
yeah. And it was occupied about 2 days after the picture and the article came out in the Current Press. The guy moved in, he has Tennessee plates on his car, so, but he does have a small child, so I don't know, living in something like that, wintertime, I don't know much about it. So. But if it's occupied, then there's not much we can do about it.
Is it hooked to a sewer?
Pardon?
Is it hooked to a?
He's
sewer?
living in a trailer. He's
Well,
living
no,
in a
but-
motorhome.
But yeah, I know, I mean, that.
He has a
old
line, I
motorhome
see
that
like
was
the
there.
line running
But
to it.
there's a what now?
Electrical line running to the trailer from probably the house.
I wanna know if there's a sewer line going out of it.
I don't think there's, I don't know about that.
There's one running out of the Walmart though.
Yeah, they poured it out. I don't know, I gave
That's a
up
shelter, that way to live.
gave up on it.
That motorhome's been pushed to the east about 20, 30
He
feet,
did mow the grass.
and he mowed, so.
Yeah, I know. But there's not much you can do about it. It's occupied.
No, there is no.
Stopped the animal shelter the other day, everything's going well out there. One question, Andrew wasn't here, but Linda was there, she said Andrew was very upset about. should I
That
bring it
is
up?
that's a closed session
Okay,
type of thing,
okay.
okay?
All right.
Sorry.
Uh,
It's
There's one other
more on
thing.
finance, guys, so we need
Yeah.
to
We'll
deal
talk
with those
about it.
issues.
Okay.
Okay, that's the personnel issue that I was telling you about, okay?
All right. One other thing, what was it? I'll think about it. That's it right now. Something else I was gonna ask about, but, I'll come back to it. That's it right now.
I don't think you have anything
Oh, I
right
know,
now, John.
okay. I do. This probably is Andrew's area, or Andy's area, but, I have a pretty good resource at the school district is,
No,
That's
that
another-
is another executive
Okay.
session deal.
Okay.
Okay, that's why I
Alright.
didn't bring it up and I didn't ask about it. But you
Okay.
want to identify anybody that's interested in
now we're
it.
gonna go identify
Okay,
anything.
all right. Well, you almost did.
I almost did, yeah.
Yes.
I'll learn.
All right.
All right,
Carl,
so I'm done.
thank you.
Last week, sometime in the last week or so, me and Andy met with the hospital about the coroners. And we briefly talked to Scott that one morning that he was sworn in, and he indicated, as far as the vehicle, he's gonna need to buy a van, and he's gonna work on doing that, so he'll have something to transport, you know, in case he needs to transport bodies. And we also, when we met with the hospital, we were talking about a place for his office. And we had a 1 hour conversation about it, and I think everybody agrees that that probably would work, but we need to get back with Scott, because he wasn't able to attend the meeting because he was busy at work. But we need to sit down with Scott and explain some of the things that they indicated that they need to have happen out there. So we need to talk with Scott sometime this week to relay that information on and see if we can work something out for an office for him out there at the old ambulance bay.
Is your understanding they want to lease that to us?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Is there any storage there?
Yes.
Yeah.
When you
You
say
know what I'm
storage,
thinking, you know what I'm thinking, right?
Well, I mean, anything's possible. They're using it for storage now, but, you know, they were talking, he needs an office where he can secure all his records and everything, and a place to maybe put his van and to remove bodies to and everything, but that would be taking up part of the office, living quarters area, and one bay at the hospital in the ambulance bay. Then there'd be 2 others, and they're utilizing them right now, but,
Okay.
you know, anything's possible. That's why, you know, we need to talk, and then we, depending on what happens with you know, we
Right.
just kind of see.
Right, that's what
Yeah.
I'm just looking,
Right,
trying to tie
'Cause,
things
you know,
together.
right,
And we're not trying to be, John and Blood, we're not trying to be secretive here. We'll get you
Yeah.
filled in. It's just, we have certain things that we shouldn't talk about.
Doesn't bother me.
Okay, well, I just don't want to start off by going, well, we can't talk about that. Go ahead, John.
What is being used currently for storage in an office for the
Correct me.
coroner?
Oh, no, well,
Templeton.
go ahead.
Templeton,
Pete was using his own facility.
uses his
Okay.
own, yeah.
and then we have the Kreckman building for storage,
right,
okay?
right.
yeah, I knew that.
But now that Scott's taking over, you know, that's no longer an option to use
Yeah, I
that
didn't know if it
facility.
would be possible still since they're
No, he
together or
he
not.
has indicated that's
You'd
not
rather
possible.
not, okay,
For the next 30 days or so, he's willing to
Sure,
let him use it.
sure.
But we're in a kind of a, gotta get moving
Got to
on
do something quick.
something quick to find a facility for him to utilize.
Okay.
Augie?
Scott did come in first thing this morning and asked for a check because he did buy a van
Okay.
over the weekend.
Yeah, he said he was gonna be looking for one.
So he has one.
It's not one of those like old 70s conversion vans with like the Grim Reaper paint on the side or anything.
With the peace sign.
The ambulance bay, part of it's
Good times.
used for visiting. When the ER docs come in, is that still gonna be available for the ER docs?
Given the situation, probably not, but don't put that anywhere.
Yeah, that's gonna
That's
be a
up to
problem.
them to announce, not up to us.
Right.
Put the
That'll be a
paper.
problem. Because most of them come from Chicago, or ER docs, you know, stay overnight, so.
Well, we talked about that and are hoping to accommodate both
Yeah.
the coroner and them, but not sure. I mean, I haven't looked at it for,
That's
I haven't
okay.
been back there
I
for
haven't.
years.
That's up for the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
understand, the
So-
same token,
Yeah, but, you know, we realize that,
yeah.
so.
Anything else, Carl?
Also, on this Wednesday, when we go to executive session, we also need to talk about personnel with sheriff.
Yes, that's on the, yes.
Okay, we need to make sure he's gonna be there.
Is that on the, well, never mind. Okay, the other thing we need to talk about, Carl, with you is a week from Wednesday, on the 21st at 10 o'clock at the Kreckman Building, is a sheriff's public relation committee. Derek, that wouldn't involve you now, it would involve Andy, Carl, and myself who are on that committee. we have that memorandum, MOU coming, it's already expired and we need to work on redoing that. The sheriff's aware of it, I talked to the sheriff and he is aware of it, and so.
What time was that?
10 o'clock, Kreckman Building on December 21st, isn't it, Augie?
21st, 10 o'clock, Kreckman Building.
All right.
So you're saying I can take that off my calendar?
You can take that off your calendar, yes. So we'll need to have that posted, Augie, on time, okay? So, we're cool. Thanks, Augie. Anything else comment-wise, Phil, at this point? I know you don't have, okay. All right, Derek?
All right, so Augie sent out an email, what was that, last week, with this document on it. You guys can pull it, it's also in your packets. IMRF at the top. This is in regards to conversation with Don after the last meeting about our remaining IMRF obligations and some options there for some money saving. Pull it out. The amounts in question, and Augie, you're tracking on this, so correct me if I say anything incorrect on this, but if you look at the two negative balances on there, that's what we've been paying off for the last several years, both in lump sum and monthly payments. The amount there is calculated on the last day of the year, so somewhere around there, December 31st, along those lines, and that's when they set our payments for the year and they calculate our interest. Don brought up the fact that we have, that interest was calculated at about 7%. We do have the tax warrant loan that we take from the bank in the vicinity of about 1%. So there's an opportunity to generate about, if we were to pay off the thing in its entirety. Right now we have earmarked about $100,000 to go in and pay off a lump sum on that IMRF. The total that we owe is after that 100,000 is 270 some thousand.
9, I think.
279,000. If we paid off the remainder of that, we would save ourselves over the course of next year. So basically 7% minus 1% is 6% savings on that, to the tune of about almost $17,000. So just wanted to bring that up to discussion and talk about what our options are, but that it would be a possibility. So was that clear as mud to everyone?
Yeah.
What I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I know some of you were kind of overhearing that conversation anyway, so. And I kind of talked to Don about it, and how far we would want, to extend ourselves to get the savings. Expectation is we've got about $500,000. I don't know what that's actually down in writing yet. Jeff, do you know, or is that's coming? Mm-hmm. But approximately about $500,000 of loans we can, and tax anticipation warrants from the bank.
If we need it.
Right, borrowed to the tune of 1%. So, I'm trying to remember what Don was saying. So, he said that we could pretty easily tack another $100,000 onto the payment we're already making, and that would take us to about June before we would need to take out a loan. Some of that was incumbent upon the state of Illinois and what was passed. So that's pretty comfortable. We say we have, even if we paid the whole thing off, that would be, that'd still leave us with approximately $200,000 of money we could take out in a loan on those anticipation warrants throughout the year. It's only calculated once a year. This is kind of some additional information. So even if we paid this amount off, we would only have that $500,000 for the entirety of the year.
Something about, if we did it now, we'd save about 12,000 in interest, so that
It'd be 17,000,
Okay.
almost 16,779 is what I calculated.
December 31st, the day they calculate.
Yeah.
That's the date. that
So
they
if we wanted to
calculate
do
your
this, we would need to vote on it on Wednesday
That's right.
to make it happen.
well, it makes sense, you're gonna save $17,000.
Just as I see it.
Jeopardy any other way, why wouldn't you do it?
Right.
Well, the $1 million question is what kind of state funding is gonna come through and
Right.
how much will, if we don't get a state payment and you need to tap in farther to the 500,000 than you think.
Right, and so, you
To
know,
be
the
devil's
question being,
advocate.
would 200,000 cover us for those issues? And
Yeah, and that's
something
what,
you know, I didn't really get a clear picture from Don, but you have some ideas as far as our budgeting goes, and what, you know, what a worst case scenario would look like from the state of Illinois.
I guess I'm confused. How much do we owe?
Two
So the two
seventy-nine.
negative balances there, Carl, on here, so you put those.
300.
379, 652,
Yeah,
45. We're gonna make 100,000.
You've already
We
approved.
just did 100,000.
Which will bring us down to 279, 652, 45.
And the question is whether we wanna do some additional.
Yeah.
If we wanna put a
Up to
couple-
the entirety of the
Well-
amount.
Yeah,
And now, next year, we're gonna be making that 100,000
Probably not. We won't need to.
if we.
If we paid it off, yeah.
If we pay it, okay.
So-
But if we don't pay it off, we'll probably be doing the 100,000.
Probably.
At
we'll be
seven and a
paying it
half
back to
percent.
somebody.
Right.
why do you say if we paid it off? I mean,
No, if we don't pay it off.
if we don't pay it off,
Yeah.
okay.
Jeff, you want to explain to Lud and John about the negative balance that we have was over a period of time that we inherited from another board?
Well, yes, and we weren't extending taxes like we, for whatever reason, doesn't matter. I mean, back 6, 8, 10 years ago, we got behind in our commitments to the retirement fund. We weren't taxing, and we weren't the only one. There was a lot of
There's a lot of
districts
this
that,
going
There
on.
was some
Well, the state-
anticipation of return that was not, didn't show up, and all of a sudden the state came to us and said, oh, by the way.
You know so much.
You now
more than
owe us.
600,000.
so we, over the last, since Carl and I've been on the board, have been making rather large, substantial reductions. One year, we, what, $450,000 we were able to put down on it. And other years, 100 and some thousand, and this past year, or this year, in November, we passed 100,000. And then, and we've done that from a comfort standpoint. Obviously, we want to reduce our obligations, and number two, we didn't want to pay more because there was a comfort level in not having to borrow money throughout the year if we needed to, because the IMRF fund is solely funded by property tax, and we don't get that till July. So we're looking at 7 months where we're having to fund out of resources that we had, and we didn't want to borrow. And then we started, Derek came up with the idea, well, if we can borrow for 1.2 and save ourselves 7%, the net of 7%, why wouldn't we do that? And of course, then you brought it up in a nutshell, if we do run into difficulties, where are we at if we can't borrow the money? Of course, we can borrow more than 500,000, okay? We just put that in there. We didn't even have to tap it, the last year or two? But we put that in just so we can show it as a budget item, so we can deal with it correctly and see how it affects the budget. If, with the reserves that we still have in that fund, we should be able to get through 4 or 5 months if we ran into trouble. And we should be able to eke it out, even if the state should start not providing us. And even during that difficult time, we were still getting income tax, sales tax, replacement tax. The funds that we weren't getting were reimbursement for the supervisor of assessment, state's attorney, things like that is where we got hit the worst, okay? And not that those aren't substantial funds, but those aren't gonna drive us into difficulty that quickly. Carl, do you have,
No.
okay, I saw you.
Yeah. I guess I'm looking at this resolution that we're talking about passing, and it says the Echo is underfunded by 972,000.
That's an old, go ahead, Augie.
That was the original resolution that was drafted by Mark to just state where we were according to our audit, which would have been 2010, I believe.
But now the Echo is only 31,000.
Right,
Yes.
we've caught it
Which
way up.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've caught way up, and that letter from IMRF addressed to me shows us what those balances are.
So if we decide to go ahead and do this, this will wipe out the Echo retirement reserve, and then the balance of it will go towards the SLEP reserve.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, sir.
It'll be,
Okay.
yes.
Well, and again, if we do the full 279, we would have zero liability to IMRF as of.
As far as we know, I mean.
As far as
we could change in there.
underfunded. Yeah,
Right.
there may be some residual coming. Oftentimes there's a lag in the way that they calculate, God dang it, actuarial amounts. But it wouldn't be much. It wouldn't be much.
Well,
This
that
was
wouldn't,
substantial.
that wouldn't be due that year then, would it?
Oh,
If
no,
they
no.
recalculate, then that's what would be due that year.
Yeah.
Now,
Because
the-
it, okay.
Part two of this is when we started making our lump sum payments to try to catch up. About the third year we were doing that, they started dinging all of the agencies and divisions of government that were behind. And at that point, they had us on a $9,000 plus almost $10,000 payment that would help everybody catch up, even though we were doing this. And since that time.
Monthly
it-
payment.
Monthly payment, I'm sorry, monthly payment. So it is pretty substantial. We were doing that plus the bulk payments. This past year, or just a few months ago, they assigned next year's payment at $4,035. If we do that, yeah, this may wipe that payment out and we no longer owe that payment. But we may, we should be in pretty good shape, is what I'm trying to say.
I guess part of your concern is your ability, you said you said something that, if we needed for some reason to borrow money, that affects your ability, your interest rate at borrowing because of, you've got,
Well, yeah, we have a max we can borrow no matter what,
okay.
okay? And that's figured on the equalized assessed value and et cetera, and I can't tell you exactly what
But
that is.
if we borrowed this and then in the future, like in a year or two, have this completely paid off, then you're even better off than
Right,
what
we are
you're
better
doing.
off in the
Okay.
long run, yes. Go ahead.
Then another thing, if we go ahead and do this, that money it's borrowed through till summertime. Eventually it's gotta be paid back. Where's that money come from, and is that gonna, I guess, I'm a little confused.
There's a reserves. We have large reserves that we're carrying.
On that sheet that Don gives us once a month, that's on
Yes,
the
at the very
IMRF.
bottom, right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and it may be for a year or two, we have to borrow some money. There may be borrowing for a year or so, even in the future, you've gotta think of, it is possible in order to make it to tax time, we're
Right.
gonna get tax payment. So it is theoretically possible, and we can fund it out, if we have positive fund balances in the general fund, we can fund it out of there, we don't have to borrow money, okay?
Right.
My
So it's
primary,
not gonna short the general fund.
No, it shouldn't, no.
my primary reason for even talking about this is just to use the tool of low
Right.
interest.
I get it, right.
Okay, so basically you're saying borrow the money locally at 1% rather than paying the state 7.4.
Right.
If we have to,
Yeah.
if we have to.
Right.
We're only gonna borrow what we have to.
Right.
But, and I guess I want verification out of Don that day. When you lock in a 1% for a year?
Yes,
1 year?
And you pay it back in a year.
In a year?
yeah, we have to, of
Okay.
course, you can then reborrow it the
Reborrow.
next day.
And it may be a little bit more next year.
Well,
could be.
so that was something that Don was saying about with those warrants, you get your credit line for the year at 500 or 600, whatever we're allowed to get.
Okay.
And then even if we pay that amount back, we still, before the end of the year, we are still only allowed whatever's left over. We can't go back and reborrow that
That's
same
correct.
amount.
Right, and that makes sense.
Right.
That minus what we borrowed.
Yes.
That
Right.
minus what we borrowed.
So if you borrow the total amount and you pay it back in 2 months, that's still all you can borrow on that line of credit for the year.
Okay.
So we usually don't pay it
We
back
wouldn't pay it back
until,
until
you had to.
Right, right.
Right.
Just for everyone's information, back to what Augie was saying and maybe Jeff about, we would still have some payments due. By my math, the number they calculated for us for this year, without any lump sum payments in, being approximately $4,000. That's $2,000 over just the interest rate, and I assume that's more, that's paying off some of the principal, but, and I don't know, I don't know, part of that is covered by what we actually pay in annually to cover any kind of regularly generated liabilities we have.
If I understand your question, or your statement.
It was so clear, I'll get
It
it.
was very clear. They put us on a payment plan
Mhm.
to knock down those negative balances.
Mhm.
And once we do that, that'll go away.
Mhm.
Is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm just curious about the amounts. So, and to your point about we may owe more going forward, even if we wiped out the debt in total right now.
Yes.
So, 2214 would cover every bit of the interest that the state would charge us on the total amount before we put in even 100,000. So that'd be, you know, paying down half. I guess that's about right. Half interest and half principal.
Well, we don't
Right.
know how they're figuring that.
Right.
That's our problem.
Well, I just wonder if we would continue to have, long ago, before we had this issue, were we paying regular payments into?
In other
No.
words, do you
No.
pay on, well, sure, you surely pay.
Every month, we have payroll, and
Yes.
And we're
IMRF
shipping
goes
out
to
of-
IMRF.
Okay.
I mean, money
that's-
goes to
But
IMRF.
that's not part of that,
No.
what you're talking
No,
about? That
no.
This is only to pay on this portion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we
that's how
pay
much-
out about $400,000 a year for
Okay.
retirement.
And am I correct in saying that, well,
That's
Echo
nothing to do.
is gone, right? Once this line item is wiped out, we will never see Echo again on our,
Well, it should already be wiped out because the 100 grand would have done that.
The 100 grand will wipe that out.
That's the way they allocate it, they take the echo first and what's left. is-
SLEP
okay.
still exists, right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Sheriff.
okay. And then I assume as we go forward, once this balance is zeroed, that there's still money being paid in through payroll. that will-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're
This was
doing
a
a better
positive
job of
reserve.
that, okay? That's one. The other thing you got that is a wild card, as you know, we have a sheriff's deputy that may retire soon. And, another year or so? They have a payout at the end that you get hit too on. It's usually, you know, we're not talking tens of thousands, but we could be talking 14, 15,000 as you send somebody out to retire. So, but that we figure in also into the budget, so. That's just clear as mud, isn't it, guys?
Got it.
So
In
what-
other words, we have a long-term liability we're trying to reduce
So we
at a lesser interest
We're
rate.
vote
refinancing
on
our
this
debt.
Wednesday.
Yeah,
What do you think?
well, I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
And you think,
I mean-
in total, right? Just wipe it all out?
You follow the figures more than I do. That's-
Well,
that's a-
Anytime you can save a load of
$17,000, yeah.
Well, a good barometer on this deal is Don's comfortable with it.
Wow.
And you
Right.
know
He's
what
pretty-
no, and
He
that's
is.
good.
That is
I
good.
mean, you guys.
And
will
who
come
is
to
Don?
Our
He's
treasurer.
Oh, Wiseman,
Wiseman.
okay.
And he,
Yeah, no,
Lud
I know
and,
Don.
and John, if Don's comfortable with it, that's
Yeah.
usually a pretty good sign that,
Yeah,
because he is very, very tight and
Yeah,
very,
yes,
very
he is.
conservative and very, very.
Thanks.
What else?
So just on that, for line item 15 here, resolution authorizing, so we'll ask for
That'll be a roll call.
500,000.
What?
No,
Tax
well,
anticipation.
Oh, yeah,
warrants.
yeah, he's got an anticipation. We do that as a housekeeping item, so whenever Don needs to borrow, he can borrow.
So you mentioned there was more available.
Yeah, I don't know how much more. I'd have to get the formula out, you know.
Well,
But that should cover us.
it would be
We have never,
5 minus 279.
Carl,
that would
what
be
did we
the-
have to borrow one year? 300,000
Mhm.
is the max we've ever had to do, and that was the first year. And since that time, we haven't had to borrow anything, even during the time when the state was in issue, okay? We didn't borrow any money, okay? So, that's just being prudent.
That's if we have to.
If
Not
we
gonna
have
do
to.
it. That's if
And
we have
trust
to.
me, Don won't borrow any.
so that's basically just authorizing Don to borrow up
If
to
he has to.
500,000 without any more we need to.
And this is
Right.
basically, this is
Another
basically just
resolution, okay.
applying for it to get
Okay.
the credit line.
Yeah,
Right.
And then, of according to Don, he wasn't expecting to have to pull anything out until June at the earliest.
Right.
Okay.
So even with this max
Okay.
payment in, yeah.
And see, the state's attorney and the supervisor of assessment, between now and June, we would probably only get 80,000. I don't mean to make that's not a lot of money, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's all we'd have to, I mean, if the state stopped paying us that, that's what we'd be into for, okay?
Okay.
Any
Okay.
questions about that?
Okay.
I think I have it figured out, which scares me. It means I'm probably wrong.
Yeah, it sounds too reasonable, right?
Yeah.
Makes too much
Too
sense,
easy.
right?
So,
What else?
So you
Okay.
pass the resolution for $500,000.
Yeah.
It just gives Don the ability. to
Right,
borrow.
and if he may borrow 200 now, and, you know, if he has to.
Mhm.
He's not gonna borrow any more than he has to.
Right.
And that's something we've been doing every year, rather than waiting until we need to do it.
Yeah, that way if something comes up, we don't have to
Right.
get to a meeting.
It's
to
kinda
approve
like
it.
insurance. If you have it, you don't need it, and if you need it, you don't have it, so.
Well, and the other thing we talked about, just to kind of throw that in, is, you know, if we decided to table this year and then proceed with paying it off next year, there's a high probability that the interest rate even offered by the bank would be higher than what we're
Right,
facing now.
yeah,
So
1%,
let's
yeah.
strike while the iron's hot, as they say, so. All right, now, airport stuff. We're all excited. Need a coffee break or anything?
Probably the-
For you two, I just like to catch you guys up on what the situation is, and kind of where we're at with all this. So, the airport, this project's been in the works for now, I don't even know, 3 years, 4 years.
use that one.
How this works is every year, the FAA at every major airport collects landing fees from all the airlines. And we talk about the federal funding that goes into this project, that's collected from the airlines. So at every airport in the nation, so that money goes into the FAA kitty for general improvement of all airfields in the nation. Now, that's not just the O'Hares and the Dallas Fort Worths or whatever. It's also for regional airports and also local county airports. Some states do it differently. Our state, IDOT, actually is the manager of those funds. So whatever the state of Illinois and all its airports earns, it goes to IDOT and they divvy it up. Once a year, we go to a programming meeting and we talk about projects that are in the works. Some airports are where they need to be. Other airports have some things they need to work on. That's where we're at. We have some projects in line. So the project that's kind of in discussion right now, the one that's been held off a couple times now, we've been banking money for 4 years. So now I don't know. Basically, that money, you can help me out there, Jeff. That money falls off, right? So, or it can be programmed so far ahead, and then it just basically falls off. So years we don't use it, it's lost to us, and we aren't able to bank it. So this project, being a roughly $1.3 million, has been banked for about 4 years. So projects like this that actually involve the airport environment and not, there's different ways it's set up. So if we were going to build T-hangars or something, we would have a larger share that we would owe. This is for ramp space and a fuel farm, which is basically general aviation. Anybody who comes in to the airport can use it. We are on the hook for 2.5% of this bill. So federal government, through that fee structure with the other airports, shells out 95% of this project. 2.5 is on the state of Illinois, IDOT, and the other 2.5 is on Edgar County. All right. The original plan was to expand the ramp space on 2 sides, move the fuel farm, and then add the credit card reader and all that to it. Since the project got moved forward, the cost changed a little bit. We're only expanding one side of the ramp for this current project, moving the fuel farm and adding that credit card reader. So that's kind of where we're at. That's the general view of things. I'll kind of take a pause here. What questions do you have about that to this point?
How much are you talking about expanding the ramp?
As far as square footage, I can't really tell you. There's a trying to visualize it now. I don't have a drawing of it, but basically another.
It's gonna
I
Do you
guess
have
my-
dollar
Yeah.
figures?
Yeah, cause I'm,
Not on
I
it.
guess what I'm
Okay.
thinking, $1.4 million is a lot of concrete.
Concrete, and then it's wiring for the new fuel farm, putting all those lines in, any
Credit
plumbing
card
that's involved, the credit card machine, all that. But, you know, when they build it to spec, and so it has to be a certain thickness of concrete and all that.
Sure.
You know, I don't think they build it to put a 747 on there, but, you know, it's
Well,
substantial.
anytime you get federal money involved, it gets more expensive.
Right, that's an important point to bring up. So kind of where this whole zoning piece came from, why that law exists, is they want those federal dollars and state dollars protected. So they don't want $1 million or federal money, or, I mean, if you talk about the last 40 years, I mean, we're talking probably closer to tens of millions of dollars that have been put into this airport by the federal government through that same program. They don't want that to go in, and then all of a sudden, Air County goes, you know what, we don't want an airport, you know, Bob's gonna buy it, and he's gonna have snowmobile races in January on the runway. So they want their money guaranteed, and that's where that zoning piece, why they want some sort of guarantee in place to protect those investments. And that's where we're at with this resolution. So the resolution basically says, the County of Edgar has had an airport for 40 years. We, you know, as the county, need this airport, and we intend to keep it as an airport for time immemorial, right? The other piece is that there has been hazard zoning in place to protect the airport environment for the last 40 years. We recognize that the state is in charge of that hazard zoning and managing that. In addition, these are some of the strictures you need to know about as a person that lives within so many miles of the airport if you plan on building a structure over a certain height. So those are the kind of some of the things that are laid out in the resolution itself, but they're basically just paraphrased from the statutes, which are the actual laws that apply. And so when they brought that in and revised it, it's basically just cherry picking kind of the important pieces of what people need to know. Now, anyone who's built anything of any size in the vicinity of the airport in the last 40 years, there's a process they go through. And in fact, Coshocton, when they built that grain leg, they had to reduce, when that plan was initially put in, they had to reduce the size of that grain leg to be within the FAA and state statutes. So those are kind of the pieces that are involved there. So if you go back and you have some free time on your hands, you want to read the Illinois state statutes as they regard airports. There's one that talks about, you know, zoning airports and things like that. The big piece is, when you talk about zoning the airport, you know, we as a county do not zone. So one day in the future that may change, but as it stands right now, there's no spot zoning to be done of an airport. So that's kind of where we're at, and that's what we're building around, right? Is basically the safety of flight issue and the statutes that are currently in place.
The expansion of the pad also has to do with the crop dusters that come in. You know,
Yeah.
it's only like a month out of the year, but a lot of times they
Right.
park on the grass. The
So-
tanks do and so forth.
And I
was
assume
wondering
there
if
has to
that's
be
all
an overflow pond wherever
Right.
you park the crop duster and all of that, yeah.
So yeah, that is a big piece of it. And so when I think about the airport and any expansions, you know, I'm happy that we have aviation enthusiasts in Edgar County that are out there and enjoy the space. But when we are expanding it, we're not really thinking to them necessarily. You know, we want them to have safe means of
Yeah.
traveling around. One of our other projects is updating our taxiway. It's got some holes in it that we're keeping an eye on. But primarily, it's an economic engine for the county of Edgar, right? So any corporation that comes in here that wants to build a factory or whatever, that's a check on their list, and having the space to do that. And when we have crop dusters, which is a big part of agriculture, obviously in Edgar County, when we set that up and we're full, that ramp space is not sufficient to have everybody lined up there and fueling. So we want to make that as accessible as possible. If we can bring in more businesses that want to do crop dusting, more farmers have the ability to get their crops taken care of. Those are the things I look at.
Yeah, and I just, you know, personally in talking to people, I mean, the airport definitely provides a service that is used. I mean, you know, I get crop dusters out of there.
Mhm.
I guess the $1 million question, or 1.4 million, is that the best way to do it? You know, or to upgrade it, is it necessary to go that big?
Right. Well,
You know, and that's
sure.
that's
a valid
the
question.
big question that's out there,
So we
and
have,
that's what I.
in addition to the ramp space, we have a couple of other projects in the hopper, and then we're going to get to a point where we don't really have anything, and then at that point we'll say, you know, for programming, don't have anything that we're really looking at, because there is a cost to us in Edgar County, whether it's 2.5% or 5%. Big ones
Yeah,
are
we pay federal taxes too. Sure, there's cost to all of us.
sure. So we have the ramp space expansion, so that's now a two-parter. Also, improvement of that surface, our main taxiway that needs to be refit at some point. And then an additional taxiway that allows us people to have basically flow through traffic and not have to wait on other aircraft to taxi before they can taxi out. So those are the projects in line, and that's a several-year program, and I can show you the programming document that we have discussed. So those are once those are done, that pretty much completes our airport for any kind of use that we can foresee in the distant future. So things can always come up, but that's kind of where we're at.
Now, the funds do, like the one project, you can use it for maintenance. In other words, if we had to go out and grind that taxiway, we couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
And without state and federal participation. By the way, the federal funds are tax money, no question about it. But they are from landing fees at all the airports over the nation.
Right.
Those
No,
are dumped in, just to be clear, I mean, it's not supposed to come from your federal income tax, but
Right.
it's all tax money. But it is from landing fees at O'Hare and LaGuardia and everything that's dumped into a pile, and then everybody has.
It comes from all that money when we buy a plane ticket and it
That's
ends up
absolutely.
costing
And it's
$70
tax.
more.
It's tax money,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question about it, so, but I wanted to
The other-
clarify where it comes from.
No.
I want to clarify, you say if if you win awarded it, you don't use it, you say it falls off, well, it doesn't, it falls off of us,
Falls
it goes
off.
somewhere else.
Somebody else gets it.
Somebody else gets it,
Yeah.
yes,
And in fact, there are projects, and our last
Yeah.
meeting with them,
right.
they're like, well, these guys aren't gonna use this money, we might be, you can write a request and get even more
Yes,
if you
that's
want
the
to.
same way you do with.
We can
with
go to Cairo.
highway.
anything.
You
Highway
guys
is the
aren't
same
using it,
way.
yeah, Cairo, will
Yeah.
you trade us, we'd like to use yours now, you don't have any projects for 3 years. You can have ours in 3 years if we can use yours this year.
And I think that reminded me of one of the most important pieces of this is, so right now, the tap is shut off, right? And so, based on this zoning issue. The piece that's out there as well, it's not just these improvement projects, and that's frankly, we're not voting on going forward with the project, we're just voting on the resolution. That, right now, that tap being turned off means we don't get any funds to replace anything. Right now, our beacon's out. And so until this goes through, we can't get money to replace our beacon safety of flight issues. Hey boys, it's on you until, the money, the federal monies and state monies get turned back on. So if, let's say we have a little trimmer or something, and they put a big crack in the end of our runway, well, that runway may not be able to be used anymore, and we're not gonna be able to fix it. So that's, again, we're gonna need those federal funds. So,
It's not just this one project.
certainly, yeah.
Right, okay.
Any other questions that I can help answer?
Nope.
Okay.
That's it?
This has all been good. You do have a copy of the current year's budget here, all of them. I'm not gonna go over it completely because it hasn't had a bunch of stuff dumped into it, but we will. So I would ask that everybody take a look at it.
I have one question at a time.
No, go.
So, sheriff's overtime, we're about, 1 month into the new fiscal year, and they're already 12% over the budget on overtime. Is that true? Page nine.
I'm sure that's not correct.
What are we into our new fiscal year?
9%. You'd figure that at 9%. But that's only one payroll.
I was gonna say.
That's what I
So,
wondered. That's quite a bit over, isn't it?
yep. Oh, absolutely. I'm not.
Yeah, okay, I just wondered.
That's why we're having a meeting next
That's what I
week.
thought, yeah.
9%.
Page nine,
Page 9, okay.
Page 9, yeah, not 9%.
yeah, page nine.
But you're saying
Oh,
it
I
should be
know you're
calculated
talking about
9%.
12% over the total.
No,
Okay,
this for new fiscal year.
Yeah.
You're gonna give
It ain't-
Carl and I heartburn already.
Yeah.
So we're
I mean-
basically 3% over about where
With
we
one
should be.
payroll,
Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
still it's 11.5% over.
It's-
No, okay, you've got 1%, or 8.9% of the year gone,
Okay,
okay? But you can basically double that, because if that was one payroll, you're gonna have one more this month against 9%.
Yeah, okay.
So you're gonna be at 20% versus 9%, so you're gonna be 11% over. I've just
Okay.
rounded that all
Yeah.
up, okay?
In other
So-
words, it's not
Yeah.
getting better.
It is a frigging issue.
Yeah,
Yes, that's why we're having a meeting this year. We're not waiting to, because it's not as simple as what it seems, okay?
I have one other question. On this thing with this resolution on reimbursement for travel, is
That's
this?
what we're getting to. Augie was gonna
Okay,
explain
good.
it.
All right.
Go, Augie.
Oh, you ready for that?
Yeah, you might as well,
Okay.
he's bringing it up.
Yeah.
The legislature enacted a law last fall, Public Act 990604, regarding travel expense reimbursement for county employees, well, municipal, county, statewide,
Elected,
Elected,
anybody.
everybody. Travel reimbursement, mileage, lodging, meals. And we received a model, we have to implement a resolution or a policy by January 1st of 2017, which is in 2 weeks. UCCI, United Counties Council of Illinois, provided us with a model ordinance. And we looked at that and we tweaked it just a hair. We being me and Mark, state's attorney, is reviewing that. They've taken it right out of the statute, put it on an ordinance. There was one thing that we looked at, and that was the amount of lodging reimbursement. Cook County gets roughly $130. Collar counties get a slightly less amount, and then you come downstate, you get Champaign, Sangamon, McLean. Some of those counties get a little bit lesser amount, and then all the rest of us downstate get $60 a night. And so, what we did was we listed the reimbursement comes from the state of Illinois. They put out central management, central management services. They tell the state, here's what you're going to get. We are following that rate sheet, except for lodging. And the way I worded it was, we would I didn't say enjoy, but we would receive the same as Cook County. Up to.
If I could explain, Central Manages Services negotiates with the hotel chain. If you work for the state of Illinois and go to Cairo and rent a hotel room, you show your state ID and you get it for $60. Done deal. If I go down there and I work for this county or representing you, I'm gonna get charged $120 because I'm not a state employee. Okay? That's the way it works. My wife goes through this all the time. Now, upstate, it's a different story, but downstate, where most of her clients are, she has to pay double what the state rate is because the state negotiates that. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Everything follows the state rate except for that lodging.
Right.
It's 55 cents a mile right now for mileage. It's $5.50 for breakfast. It's $5.50 for lunch, and it's $17 for dinner. That's daily. And so, like I said, we're following it to the T, except for that lodging. And if we have, part of the reasoning for that is if I send 1, 2 of my employees and they have a meeting at a certain hotel that's going to cost $120 a night, but we're only going to reimburse them $60 a night, they can't do that. I mean, a lot of our employees, not just mine, but a lot of our employees They don't make a lot of money. And so that's why I had that in mind, to help them out.
I don't
So,
think this is an issue that comes out that often,
no, it's not.
but if you go to a national deal and say, we've got 120 motel and they have to pay 200, we can allow that by roll call vote. Okay, there is an exception, if we decide to, or, I mean, not indiscriminately. And obviously, entertainment is excluded from all of this, there's no entertainment, no nothing, so it's just pure travel. And it doesn't come up very often, guys, but we have to follow, we have to do this to meet the standards that this new law provides. Yes,
The reason why I asked this is nothing to do with what we get paid per meeting, right?
no, not, but it does
This is just when we
affect,
travel somewhere.
it does affect the travel on that,
Okay.
okay? And we do have to fill out a different form now, okay?
So if you don't claim travel, then you don't worry about any of this.
You don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
What I don't
Or
understand
would
is,
you claim travel to?
Well, I mean, he lives in Chrisman, so he's gonna travel.
They allow the board to,
So you
For
come
mileage.
from Richmond, you can do that, huh?
You could too, but.
he's got a room
It's
at
only
the
one
Motel
mile.
8.
yeah, I got a hotel room.
Yes.
Yeah, not gonna make much.
I don't understand the
No,
logic behind the rates given for different parts of the state. Obviously, you know, people aren't gonna generally get together here in Edgar County for a meeting. If you're traveling, you're going up, you know, so I would think the rates would be based on where you're traveling to,
Yes.
not, and so what's the, so then you have to explain to me again.
So if you go to, I don't know,
Let's say there's a meeting in Chicago that I'm going to. The way it's written, you're saying that I would only get reimbursed for $60 a
no,
night
no. You'd get reimbursed
per the Chicago rate.
for the Chicago rate.
So we're
But
changing
had-
this based on a just downstate issues that.
We're changing it
non-state.
all to 120, right?
No, we're changing it to the same rate that Cook County gets.
That's what I
Because
mean.
they
Whatever
currently-
that rate is.
And that can change, just like
Okay.
lodging and the mileage.
Mhm.
But if we go to a hotel in Chicago and it's $150 a night, then go to get reimbursed $150 is the way we're gonna work it. Now, you would normally get 120, but if you go over, those expenses have to be approved by roll call vote by the board for that employee. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
perfect
pretty
sense.
much what I said, yeah,
Well, you beat me to it.
that's all right.
So the 30-some cents that we're paying probably for mileage now,
It's
about-
35 cents.
and now it's gonna be 55.
54.
When we enact
Okay.
this, we're going to the state rate. And we,
How often does this become an issue?
54
not
cents.
very often. I travel maybe twice
2
a
miles.
year to a conference, sometimes once.
I can get there and back, you know. That makes sense to me, all you.
Well,
Well, you talk about sending, your personnel someplace, you're right, I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
sure it is.
Now you're talking.
Us poor people, we can't afford it.
Or
And like Jeff said, in this resolution, which basically comes right out of the statute, no entertainment, period. We have to have a voucher, and they provided us a very complex form that the state uses that's too complex. So we have a claim form that the county uses. All the department heads that want their bills paid, or any employee, they file a claim form. And there is absolutely no need to reinvent that wheel. We have what we need already. And,
And it meets the laws requirement.
yeah, you just have to have your name, the date you're traveling, and the reason why you're going. So it's very simple. Yeah, I stuck one of those in there too. Yeah, that's a generic one.
that's
And-
one we would use.
That's the one you would use
Okay.
if you traveled. Right.
Is that clear as mud too?
Mhm.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I can't see Brewer paying any more than he has to, I know that.
Hey, I'd sleep in the car.
Augie, you got
Sleep in the
anything
car.
else on the agenda that you want to talk about?
No, I do want to just back up and reaffirm that our state's attorney is looking at this, and he initially said he doesn't see any problem with any of it, but just so that I can get his stamp of
Final seal,
approval, so
right.
that we're not doing anything illegal, which we're not. So, you covered IMRF, that was a big one. This was a big one.
So we have committee assignments ready
No.
Wednesday?
Yeah. Yeah, Carl and I are gonna put our heads together and come up
Sure,
with
Carl
a,
brings his pen, give me that back, Steve.
First time I've ever forgot it.
and.
That's it.
You take a pen, John, Elsie never brought
See
a
if I've got
pen.
any.
I've got two of them.
Up to you, okay. Elsie never brought a pen.
Anyway, we will hit the budget more carefully, once you guys have had a chance to look at it and answer questions and try to get you as comfortable as you can be with the budget as quickly as you can be, okay?
I had one question on this airport resolution.
Yes.
As a state's attorney, I mean, are we in compliance as far as what John brought up, as far as not have to have another public hearing?
I'll confirm with him again, but
Right. We just don't wanna, there's no sense in setting out tripwires that, in other words, if there had to be some formal action prior to us doing that, but I think given the fact that it's really not zoning may be the issue,
That
okay?
would be the accomplishment of having a second public hearing.
more time,
More time.
and not needed. I mean, that's
And we're
the-
gonna screw around and miss the lettings here if we're not careful. Yeah, we are.
Yeah. Right,
Well,
I agree.
the best one financially, yes. Gentlemen, welcome aboard.
Yep.
It is a lot of fun. It is gratifying most of the time. No, it is.
It is.
It's a lot different than when we got on, isn't it, Carl? I think.
It's a lot,
mean,
I don't know, but from what I hear,
it's
lot
less
better.
less contentious.
good
and-
people.
All I can tell you, very simple, it's hard to watch your mouth when you're being taped. It kind of
We're being taped?
messes up my sense of humor.
Bothers him all the time, not.
Yeah, well, don't
He goes, well, don't print that.
Both of us come from the same background, and you're
Like the
usually
best
the teacher.
comment so far is on the negotiating, and this one lady was getting 10 cents an hour, and I said, that's a slap on the face. She'll never forget that.
Well, there is, it is,
It is rewarding, it really
Yes.
is.
and we'd like to get it to the point where people wouldn't see it as a stigma being on it,
All right.
okay? That people would enjoy being on this
You're still gonna
board.
have the people that disagree with certain things, but that's always gonna be true, and you just like that, like water off a duck's back.
There's always gonna be problems,
There's always
but
gonna be
we're
problems.
trying to shed ourselves of some of the personal issues
Right.
that have developed over the last 4 and 5 years and move forward. And that's difficult. And you can't fault some people, I mean, it's tough. Go ahead. Oh, I thought you,
No, I'm just pointing at this derelict over here, he's got something he wants to say.
oh, this derelict?
Yeah. I have a great sense of humor, and,
Yeah, it'll help, it'll help.
but this camera, it kinda takes away some of my.
Yeah.
You don't look very good on
Oh,
camera
no.
either.
Don't hold back,
Well,
lad.
they say
Don't hold
cameras
back.
make you age 10 years, how many cameras you got on? It's
You just say what you feel like, if it goes over, fine, if not, you don't worry about it.
Well, this could be a hit show on TV with you.
I'm always getting in trouble with my mouth. I'm always in trouble with my mouth.
reality,
Don't
it's
worry
gonna be a
about it.
reality show. One of those 5 women talking.
What do you mean you think it could be? It is a reality.
Carl, did you have something
Yeah, I
else?
just wanted to, something, listening to Rob about the project and everything, and to some degree, I have to agree with him. This is a big project. I'm not sure all of it's needed. Obviously, I don't think all of it's needed. It seems like it is a lot of money. I know John brought that up, what we're getting for 1.3 million. I'm not sure we're getting that much advantage, but the one thing that, and talk about the county has to come up with $60,000. The state's coming up with a certain amount. The federal money, it's taxpayer money, but, it's money that's going to be spent, whether we use it or someone wherever uses it. And if we don't take it, someone else will, and, you know, it's somewhat foolish to turn that kind of money down, the way I look at it. But I also come back to the thought, you know, we gotta come up with our share, and, you know, there's a lot of other needs in the county too that we gotta think about. That 60,000 could go towards.
Well, remember though that the way we have it structured, it would come out of funds that we can't use elsewhere. Okay?
Yeah.
And,
I'm sorry, you had your time, man, unless somebody
But-
else.
well,
So
and
you adjourn, I'll talk to you.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So, you know, that's just some thoughts that I had.
You need to get a project sheet out to the guys. Okay?
yeah. And I was just,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, unfortunately, with the business climate, you know, the needs of the smaller airports are shifting. And that, you know, we're not experts in that and predicting what needs are gonna be. And, you know, that's kind of the challenge of it.
That's
You know, I'm
why
not saying for or against, I'm just saying that is a challenge, and who knows what the answer is
Well,
on that.
and the other thing we struggle with, you know, to my point about the kind of the engine of, you know, economic development
Yeah.
in Paris or in the county of Edgar, is it's hard to put a dollar amount on that. What is the return? You know, how do you calculate it? And so
Oh,
it's something
exactly.
that it's really hard to you know, explain to people.
And 10 years from now, you know, with teleconferencing technology that wasn't there when they built the airport, you know, are people from pick your factory in town, GSINAL, whatever, are they going to want to fly into a meeting?
Just
you know?
as a caveat
maybe,
to
maybe
that,
not,
as
yeah.
an anecdote to kind of explain where that wouldn't fall in, and you have a good point, is it was just this year. NAL ran short of a certain part they obviously absolutely needed, and they ended up
Yeah.
flying it in on a jet from one of their other plants to be delivered. So there are things that, you know,
Sure.
it's hard to, you know, replace with technology, but you certainly have.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not using that as a con, I'm just,
Mhm.
it's a challenge.
Okay. Anything else come before the meeting? Thank you all. Appreciate it. Hold a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Andy, seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.
I have
Yes.
some comments that I couldn't voice in the meeting.